Barbara Coombs-Lee is with us. She is an activist for Compassion and Choices is the organization. Compassion and andchoices.org is the website. And this is not just about Brittany Maynard. Maynard is the name of the young woman who is apparently going to take her life this weekend. Barbara, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Tom. I'm happy to be here.
Thanks for joining us. First of all, give us a snapshot of Brittany Maynard, who she is, why she, at the age of 29, is going to check out.
Brittany Maynard is a truly remarkable young woman. I want to clarify first that she hasn't set a date in stone, and she's made it clear that she wants to see how her illness progresses and how severe her symptoms are. So if November 1st comes and she's feeling pretty good, that won't be the day that she dies. But she does have the means to abbreviate her dying process. She derives enormous comfort from that, and she will wait until the last possible minute that she believes she can in order to assure a peaceful death for herself and as little trauma as possible for her family. She is, as I said, a remarkable, remarkable woman who has captured the imagination of the world. One of the most remarkable things about her is how voracious she is in the acquisition of information. And she was like that from the moment she received a diagnosis of brain cancer. She was not one of these people who goes to the doctor and listens to what he or she says and just accepts that. She went out on her own, did enormous amount of research on her cancer, on the treatments for her cancer, on the progression, on the natural course of the illness, and she faced those things with unblinking fortitude and directness. So she knew exactly when and why and how there were no treatments that would be likely to prolong her life, certainly no treatments that would improve the quality of her life, and what the side effects of the treatments that were offered were, and what the natural course of her illness would be, what kinds of symptoms, what kinds of suffering and agonies it would visit upon her before it took her life. Those are questions that, the vast majority of us do not have the fortitude and the courage, quite frankly, to ask.
It's pretty profound stuff. The point that you made at the very beginning is in this whole, the Death with Dignity movement and the law that was passed in Oregon, is, I think, pivotal. I was living in Oregon when that law was passed. I was doing this radio show, and we had a number of people on the program who were either enrolled, essentially. They were within 6 months of dying, or who were working with people who were. And one of the really consistent threads that really surprised me was that a lot of people, when they know that they're facing a terminal illness and they're starting to get into the really excruciatingly painful part of a horrible dying process from one of these illnesses, a lot of them panic and basically grab a gun and blow their brains all over the wall. And it's done in secret, and it's done with shame, and it's done in hiding. And if any family member is involved with it, they could be prosecuted, and all these kinds of things. And what the people who had this medication, where you just, you drink a bottle of this stuff and it's barbiturates and you just go to sleep and that's the end of it, what they said, and the stories that I heard, was that they tended to last longer than people who didn't have this option. And
I think that's absolutely true. And there's research to back it up. I think it's common knowledge that people can endure a greater amount of pain if they control it themselves.
Right.
The power of our own, our controlling our own destiny, it's an enormous power. And people, the quality of their lives changes when they have the medication in their hand or even the prescription, and they know that they have the means to avoid their worst nightmare. That's what happened to Brittany, and she talks about it on her video. She says, I can't describe how meaningful and how comforting it is to know that I don't have to suffer through the very worst of this disease.
Right. And so what what these death with dignity laws do ultimately is, in many cases, they actually reduce the percentage of people who end up committing suicide. A lot of folks died of natural causes with the prescription sitting right next to them on the bed, or some did.
Right.
And go ahead.
Right. Well, people are dying. Just because
Sure.
their aid in dying is authorized in your state doesn't affect how many people are dying.
Yeah.
But it does affect how many people die peacefully, and it also, as you said, it affects how many people die prematurely, and fewer people die prematurely because they do not have to act while they still have the wherewithal to do what people do, and it's tragic what people do. They jump from balconies, they kneel in front of trains, they do use guns, and they do it because society has denied them a more peaceful, humane option. When society grants them an option that is peaceful, that is a medical practice, well, then they can wait. They can wait until the very last possible moment. They can eke out the joy and the delights of every day of life until they absolutely are close to the end, and then they can take their medication.
Yeah, it's an extraordinary thing. How many states have laws like Oregon does, and how many are considering them, and what's happening on the pushback front? We have about 2.5 minutes left.
5 states authorize aid in dying one way or another. Oregon and Washington State have similar laws. The Montana Supreme Court has said that there's no public policy or codified law against aid in dying, and therefore it can be pursued as a medical practice. Vermont has a law kind of like Oregon's and Washington's, but with the reporting practices that expire after 3 years. And a district court in New Mexico has conferred constitutional protection under the state constitution's privacy provisions. So we have essentially 5 states, one way or another, where aid in dying is authorized. Mm-hmm. The legislatures in Connecticut, New Jersey, Massachusetts, probably Colorado, depending on the outcome of the election in a few days, and of course California. There's a very vigorous campaign in California. But I think, Brittany Maynard is a game changer. She has raised awareness among people who never thought this was an issue that affected them. All of a sudden, yes, it affects me. People like Brittany Maynard, or who have daughters like Brittany Maynard, or friends like Brittany Maynard, and it could affect me. So many more people are aware of the issues and aware that the profound questions of agency, dominion, whose life is it anyway, those are at issue here, and they want to weigh in.
Is most of the pushback against this basically coming from people with religious objections? I know the Catholic Church is opposed to this.
The Catholic Church is opposed to it, but I want to make the distinction between Catholic people and the Catholic hierarchy, because polling indicates that people of the Catholic faith are as supportive of aid in dying as everyone else is. Right. But there is Catholic doctrine that says it is never permissible to initiate or intend your own death, and so that means that it is a violation of doctrine. That is the institutional support or opposition. Far and away, the greatest institutional opposition comes from the Catholic Church and conservative religious forces like Right to Life organizations.
Very interesting. Barbara Coombs-Lee, you can read all about it at Compassion and Choices, compassionandchoices.org. Barbara, thanks for dropping by today.
And the BrittanyFund.org. Thank you so much, Tom.
The Brittany Fund. How do you spell Brittany?
The BRITTANY Fund.org.
Great. Thank you, Barbara.
Thank you. Bye.
We'll be back.